What does punishment really mean? Is it the moment a judge reads your sentence? Or the years that follow, when every breath is measured by rules, walls, and the echo of locked doors? For 5 relentless weeks, this prison was frozen in silence. No laughter, no arguments, no footsteps in the yard. Just the metallic rhythm of doors that only opened when guards decided it was time. Now the lockdown has lifted, but freedom here is an illusion. Men who spent 24 hours a day confined in cells, no, bigger than a bathroom now, step outside for minutes, not hours. The air feels different, almost foreign, as if the world beyond their steel bars had moved on without them. In this place, punishment is not just about the crimes committed. It's about the slow erosion of time, the weight of isolation, the psychological toll of knowing that tomorrow will look exactly like today. The sentence isn't carved into paper. It's etched into the mind. And sometimes, that's what truly breaks a person. You'll see it in the way eyes avoid direct contact, in the way hands grip the fence as if it could give way. You'll hear it in the pause before someone answers a question, as if words themselves have to be rationed. This is more than a story about inmates. It's about a system that shapes them, confines them, and in some cases, quietly erases who they used to be, until only the sentence remains. And here, that sentence has many faces, because when the gates close behind you, that's when the real punishment begins. In a place like this, stories aren't told through words. They're etched into glances, into the quiet way someone leans against a wall, into the rhythm of footsteps echoing down a corridor. Every detail carries weight. Every silence says more than a full confession ever could. And while we're standing here, piecing together what life behind these walls truly means, I can't help but wonder how it all feels to you. If something in this has made you stop and think, if a moment, a phrase, or even a single image stayed with you, share it in the comments. I genuinely read what you write, and your perspective adds another layer to these stories. It's not just about hearing mine, it's about weaving yours into the conversation. And if you believe this kind of content matters, a simple like helps more than most people realize. It tells the algorithm that these voices deserve to be heard, and it helps us reach others who might never see this otherwise. Subscribing means you're not just passing through. It means you're walking this road with me, video after video, uncovering the human truths most people would rather ignore. Together, we can keep this window open into a world that too often stays hidden. Now, as we step deeper into this reality, the walls begin to speak in ways that words never could. Ronald Sanford's story doesn't begin with headlines or courtroom drama. It starts in the quiet neglect of a childhood no one was watching. At just 13 years old, his life took a turn so sharp it erased the possibility of ever going back. Convicted of a double homicide and sentenced to 170 years, he spent more time behind bars than he ever lived outside. His cell is now the place where he sleeps, reads, and thinks, but the memories that put him here have a weight books can't lift. He talks about his home life the way some people talk about a storm. Chaotic, violent, and impossible to control. The arguments, the blows, the silences that lasted for days, they were the air he breathed. When you grow up surrounded by volatility, your sense of what's normal twists, and decisions you can't undo start to feel inevitable. Ronald's normal taught him that power came from fear, and choices were made in seconds, not after thought. Now the contrast is staggering. The boy who once carried the weight of a gun carries books instead. Volumes on philosophy, history, and human behavior. He speaks with calm, measured words, as if he's learned the value of pausing before pulling any trigger, even a verbal one. But there's no rewriting what happened. The crime remains, etched into his record, and the lives it destroyed. And that's the hardest truth here. Transformation can happen, but it doesn't erase the beginning of the journey. It only reframes it. If you've made it this far, drop the word destiny in the comments. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Death row is not just a place. It's a state of existence where every sound echoes. Too long, and every silence weighs too much. The air feels different there, heavy with the knowledge that everyone is counting time not toward freedom, but toward an ending. Days blend into one another, stitched together by routines that seem designed to strip life down to its barest form. Meals arrive on a schedule so precise it feels mechanical, and conversations, when they happen at all, are filtered through unspoken rules, a set of codes that keep fragile alliances from shattering. Here, punishment isn't always about the crime. It's about the relentless erosion of the self. The walls close in not because they move, but because the mind does. Isolation has a way of magnifying thoughts until they become unbearable. Inmates navigate this mental minefield with quiet strategies, reading the same book over and over, counting the cracks in the floor, replaying memories like worn-out tapes. But some reach a point where they no longer want to keep playing the game at all. Paul McManus is one of them. He speaks of his sentence, life without parole, as if it were a more brutal fate than execution itself. "I'd rather have a date," he says, meaning a death date. For him, the endless stretch of years ahead is the true punishment, a horizon that never moves closer. And in that perspective, death becomes not the worst outcome, but the release. It's a thought that forces you to question what justice really means when the sentence isn't a number, but a lifetime. If this idea stirred something in you, write Mind's Cage in the comments. And now, let's step into a part of this world where the rules change entirely. The new death chamber sits at the far end of the prison, behind layers of gates and corridors that feel like they were built to keep secrets as much as they were built to keep men inside. It smells of fresh paint and metal, untouched, yet heavy with purpose. No one has died here yet, but everything in the room has been designed for that single moment. The stretcher sits in the center, straps folded neatly, the kind of precision you'd expect in an operating room. Except this one has no intention of saving lives. It's strange, almost surreal, to see something so immaculate, knowing it exists solely for endings. The lights hum softly above, casting a sterile glow on the walls, as if pretending this is a place of procedure, not finality. The state built it, even though executions haven't happened here for years. The reason? A nationwide shortage of lethal injection drugs, manufacturers refusing to sell to correctional systems, leaving states in a kind of limbo. And so the chamber waits, like a theater with no performance, while politicians argue over whether the curtain should ever rise again. Some see the delay as a failure of justice. Others see it as a chance for reflection, a pause that forces society to question whether this act, killing in the name of the law, is still acceptable in a world wrestling with its own conscience. It's a paradox, building a place to end life while debating if you should ever use it. If that image lingers in your mind, write "silent room" in the comments. And now, let's step closer to the men who would be first in line if the curtain ever does rise. Rick Parrish has been in prison for 42 years, longer than many of the guards here have been alive. His cell is small, but inside it are fragments of a life that once existed beyond concrete and steel. Faded photographs, some curling at the edges, show him as a young man, smiling in sunlight that he can now only imagine. Letters, yellowed by time, are stacked neatly in a box under his bunk, each one a reminder of people who have either passed away or stopped writing years ago. These mementos aren't just keepsakes. They are the last living proof that he was once part of a world that forgot him. 3 life sentences. No possibility of parole. For Rick, the concept of release doesn't come in the form of a gate swinging open, but in the slow, inevitable approach of the end. He speaks about it with a strange calm, as if the weight of years has pressed the urgency out of him. There's no rebellion left, no expectation of miracles, just the quiet acceptance that his final breath will be taken within these walls. And yet, there's an unsettling truth here. Time doesn't simply pass in prison, it distorts. Days stretch endlessly, but years vanish without warning. One morning you're 25 and the next you're 67, your hands trembling as you try to hold the same photographs that once fit easily in your pocket. For men like Rick, death is not a sudden visitor. It is a shadow that has lived with them for decades, inching closer every year. If that shadow speaks to you, write "no clocks" in the comments. Now, let's step into the stories of those whose final moments will be decided not by age, but by the state itself. When Ronald Sanford sees his mother again after decades, there's no dramatic music, no tearful embrace like in the movies. Just 2 people sitting across a table, each carrying the weight of years that can't be rewound. She looks older, softer somehow, the sharp edges dulled by sobriety and time. Ronald, too, has changed, not just in the lines on his face, but in the way he listens. They don't talk about the crime, about the night that locked his life away at 13. They speak about the present, as if choosing to build something fragile on the tiny scraps of time they still have. Prison visits are strange like that. For some, they are a lifeline, a few hours of connection that remind you the outside world still exists. For others, they are a mirror you'd rather not face, reflecting all the life you're missing. And when those visits stop, when the chair across from you stays empty for months or years, the silence itself becomes part of the sentence. It's the unspoken punishment, the one no judge ever mentioned. Ronald's case forces a deeper question. What does it mean to sentence a child as if they were already a fully formed adult? At 13, most kids are still deciding who they want to be. Ronald had that choice taken from him before he even understood the weight of it. Now, whispers of reform float through legal corridors. The possibility of revisiting sentences for juveniles, of acknowledging that the human mind is still under construction in those years. Whether that will come in time for Ronald is uncertain. If the idea of time as both thief and teacher resonates with you, write "still becoming" in the comments. And from here, I want to step closer to the question of what freedom really means when your world has been reduced to a cell. William Clyde? Gibson speaks like he's reading from a grocery list. No tremor in his voice, no pause to search for the right words, because for him, there are no right words, just facts. Cold, stripped of empathy, dropped into the air like stones into dark water. He talks about his murders not as moments of horror, but as events on a calendar, each one marked and filed away in his mind. The chilling part isn't just what he's done, but how openly he hints at more. Crimes never discovered, bodies never found. For the listener, it's a reminder that some truths are buried not because they're unknown, but because no one dares to look too closely. There's no redemption arc here. no desperate attempt to prove his worth as a human being. Prison, for Gibson, is not a place of reflection or remorse. It's containment, a cage holding a predator who has no interest in changing. For most people, the thought of death row is the ultimate punishment. For him, it's almost a formality. An ending he doesn't fear, maybe even welcomes. And that's where the definition of punishment fractures. For some, it's the slow erosion of hope. For others, it's the quiet waiting for a conclusion they've already accepted. It forces an uncomfortable question. When the worst someone can face isn't enough to reach them, what then? What do we do when the sentence has no sting? Perhaps the true weight isn't in the bars or the sentence, but in the absence of anything to lose. If that thought leaves you unsettled, write "the edge is closer than we think" in the comments. Now, I want to step into the unsettling space where punishment stops being about justice and starts revealing the deepest cracks in what we believe about humanity. If you've stayed with me until now, it probably means something in this story struck a chord. Maybe it was the silence between words. Maybe it was the truth that punishment isn't always what we think it is. Either way, that connection matters. It's what makes this space worth returning to. If you want to keep exploring these stories and the layers behind them, subscribing means you won't miss the next time we go deeper. And if you felt this was worth your time, a simple like is more than just a button. It's a way of telling the algorithm, and me, that this kind of conversation is worth having. Leave a comment with the phrase, "Justice is never simple," so I'll know you made it all the way here, and so others will see it and wonder why. That curiosity is where new discussions begin. There's another video right here that builds on what we've just explored. Click it, and let's keep walking through the shadows together.